You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org. This episode of Pizza Quest is brought to you by Central Milling, hand-selected grain, expertly milled for passionate bakers. Central Milling is the farmer, the miller, and the baker working together to preserve American farmland for tomorrow while providing the highest quality flour and grains for the bakers of today. Dating back over 150 years, Central Milling is built on generations of knowledge, and they know that premium flour starts at the source. Employee-owned, Central Milling works directly with their farmers to sustainably grow grains that have exceptional flavor, nutrient content, color, and baking performance, which results in one of the largest selections of premium specialty flour and grains in the country. Hand-selected for the highest baking qualities, milled, cracked, or blended slowly to minimize heat generation, then bake-tested for performance. Learn more about Central Milling and their products at centralmilling.com. I'm Peter Reinhardt. This is Pizza Quest. I'm coming to you from the International Pizza Expo in Las Vegas, Nevada, where we've been talking with lots of really interesting people. In our time, in real time for us, it's about 2.5 days of nonstop conversations. In terms of our podcast, Pizza Quest, this is going to run for like 3 months. We got 3 months worth of material that we're going to play with here. And so I'm here today with Peyton Smith, who is almost a neighbor of mine. He's got a pizzeria that's getting a growing reputation out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, called Mission Pizza Napolitana. And when I say neighbor, I'm in Charlotte, and that's about an hour and 15 minutes from you.
Yeah, that's pretty much
and
it.
I have no excuse for not having been up to Winston for, a while, but it's on our list, and we're working even together. We've been talking about an event that we may be able to do up there in Winston. I just always look for an excuse to come up.
Yeah,
so we're going to try to make it happen.
That'd be great.
But Peyton, why don't you tell people a little bit about Mission, how it came to be, and a little bit about your background?
Sure. Mission Pizza has been around since 2014, and I probably started along my pizza journey sometime in 2007. So it was quite, I wouldn't call it arduous, but it was quite circuitous for me to get where I am now. Basically changed careers, basically. I wouldn't say that I had a really established career, but I was working and had enough work experience at the time. 2007, I was not quite 32 years old, and I was just thinking to myself that I'd had enough work experience of either other people just, me working for them, or they set the agenda, or, if we pay you enough, what will you do, kind of thing. Just very quid pro quo career life. And it just wasn't for me. So I had to shift gears. Yeah, and not only was it not fulfilling, because that can be kind of a tricky target, but I just felt like it wasn't the best use of me as a person and my skills and my abilities, and it certainly didn't energize me or turn me on in any way that felt personal. And I just thought, it's just not probably going to be not a great fit for me to go work for someone forever.
Yeah.
The two passions in my life really are food, which is now expressed in pizza, and prior to that, soccer. So I played soccer. Yeah, I played soccer my whole life and was kind of an aspiring soccer player. Played at university at a very high level, and had sort of exhausted that part of my life. And so I said, well, okay, this other thing that just sort of gets my gears moving is food. But at the time, I didn't know what it was. I thought about my first love in food is barbecue. I'm a proper North Carolinian.
Right. Are you from North Carolina?
Yeah, I'm from Winston-Salem.
So you're right in your home court. And of course, that's a Carolina barbecue is its own distinct thing.
Yes. And but when I got into that, there were some components that didn't make the most sense. So one is I kind of like to do things sort of my own way. My pizzeria is a perfect expression of that and a perfect example of that. I felt like sort of being this, if I wanted to get into barbecue, but doing it in a unique way, in a place that's so entrenched with tradition, I felt would be problematic.
Well, a friend of ours, I think you may know him as well because he's from Winston, is Jim Noble.
Yeah, of course.
And has a long time, one of our great chefs in Charlotte now.
Of course, yeah.
And he's opened a wonderful barbecue place.
Yeah, they're doing a great job.
And the way he got around that was basically to do great Carolina barbecue, but also Texas and ribs and sauce. He's doing it all.
Yeah, he's doing a great job.
Which I like because I'm kind of more of an omnivore when it comes to barbecue. I love every style. I don't think there's a style I don't like, but I don't want to be only hemmed into just one.
Yeah, I'm with you in that respect. I have a similar mindset about pizza. At the moment, what really speaks to me and has since I started to Neapolitan pizza, my journey there was kind of interesting. I had kind of a couple, I would say, random experiences that ended up in hindsight being kind of eureka moments for me. So I was in Napoli in 1998 randomly during the summer. Ate pizza on the street there. If I were there today, I would tell you where it was. I probably would tell you who the pizza maker was. You know what I mean? I would remember everything about it.
Yeah.
But back then, it didn't hold the same significance. However, just as an experience, at that time, pizza in the South was really heavy, either delivery type pizza or New York-ish pizza, and it was all. What's up?
It was mostly chain.
How you doing? This is Christian Petroni. I ran into him on this curb on Orchard Street 2 weeks ago, doing a pirate meatball pop-up. He's a character.
That's the cool thing about being here at an expo. We're running, seeing people. We're doing our talk right in the middle of everything.
So many people. And so, but what was unique about this thing in Napoli is it was just like, this is not pizza as I understand it, right? And it probably was, frankly, a marginal street pizza. However, it was incredibly fresh and light.
It was so different.
Yeah, and the tomato is bright and clean, and the cheese tastes like it comes from a cow rather than a factory, and obviously some fresh herbs, and it was really beautiful. And then shortly thereafter, I was in New York for about a year, and all the sort of legacy coal-fired places, New York didn't really pop off until about 7 or 8. Remember when Roberto was on the cover of New York Magazine in 2008?
Yes.
But that would be like Tutono's, Lombardi's, especially Grimaldi's, which was right down the street from us.
These were like the old guard coal-fired pizzerias.
And obviously they're distinct from proper Neapolitan, but they share a lot of similarities. Really bright, clean, sort of light eating experience. And when I shifted gears into food, I said, barbecue doesn't work, but I have this like idea of these things that were done just a few years ago. I experienced these things, and these things aren't being done here. And why aren't they being done here?
Right.
So I really dove into it quite a bit. Ultimately settled on Neapolitan pizza, and then basically just got to work.
So you really went all in on the Neapolitan style because nobody else was doing it yet.
Right. Yeah. No one in the Carolinas was doing it.
You liked it enough that we say, well,
yeah.
But then you had to enter a learning curve, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. So I initially thought I was going to open a brick and mortar in 2008, and 2008 was another financial crisis,
that was a bad time to try to open a restaurant.
God laughs, and you just shift gears. So I started with a Fire Within trailer.
Oh,
yeah.
So you had one of the mobile trailers.
Yeah, I was one of, back when Joe was still really hard scrabble before he sold it.
The original owner of
Pergolizzi. And then, so I got started that way, and that was actually a great way to get started. I think for me, I wanted to be in the business of being in business, so to speak. Like, I didn't want to be an enthusiast. I needed to prove that people would pay me to do this, develop some self-efficacy, and then start with a small little brand. So what was good about that, and coming back around to this idea of a learning curve, is, I understood sort of the basic parameters and technically what people were doing at the time, and but being able to do it the way I learned So let's say on a Wednesday night, I might pull in your backyard and we make pizza for like 40 people. Well, maybe that same Saturday, I might go to a festival and make like 300 pizzas.
Right.
I'm not going to prepare those pizzas the same way. I'm not going to ferment them the same way, right? The one on Wednesday, I'm likely going to have to use some refrigeration. The one on Saturday, the one on Wednesday, for 40 people, I'll probably just do an ambient fermentation and get it where I need it at the time I'm prepared to bake.
Adjust to the situation,
And so, sort of being forced by the logistics of that small company I had to learn how to get to the same end result myriad ways was incredibly useful to me.
And that's something you could probably do in Naples, where there's only one way to do it.
Yeah. And I'd met Roberto Caporuscio, and I was prepared to sort of work with him and even move up there and hang out with him for quite a while. And
that's at
that's back when he was still at Amano in New Jersey.
That was before he was at Castay.
Yeah, that was back in Ridgewood.
Yeah. Okay, so and of course for those,
this is a while ago.
Most people who are listening know Roberto, but if you don't, Roberto Caporuscio, one of the truly great, authentic Neapolitan Naples guys.
Yeah,
making some of the best pizza you ever had.
For sure. And so that didn't really happen. I shifted gears, and he actually encouraged me not to do that. And the reason being, he said, well, you'll spend time here, and if we like each other, like, you can work here and learn as much as you want, but you're not building a pizzeria right now. So then you're going to go home, and then you're going to have idle hands. And so why don't you get your stuff together, and then we can start to train as we ramp up. Yeah, I thought it was incredibly, and what he was offering me was wholly in my best interest. And so I really respected him and appreciated him immediately for that. And so that's sort of the way I migrated. I shifted into this small mobile company, and then I just basically learned on the fly.
Because now you kind of have a workshop to make it real, and to learn, in real life situations, in cash situations, where you pay as you go.
Yes.
So suddenly it got real, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And even the small bit of, like I said, self-efficacy is really valuable. And then just getting the reps in. So that was really, really important. And I think the other piece about it is, even as a young person, a novice, maybe you're not confident in maybe your expertise or the value you bring. Providing a more experiential service and a very private, intimate level kind of gave me the buffer to grow into it in a way that, like, $16 or $18 for a quid pro quo pizza, like hard exchange in a sit-down restaurant.
Yeah.
Maybe that clientele wouldn't give you the same freedom. And so I think that was kind of a nice buffer with that mobile business to begin with.
Yeah, because now you're kind of in an incubation period for as the story unfolds here.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so I did that for a few years. Ultimately got open in January of 2014. So this is our 10th year.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's been that long already. It's hard to believe.
It is hard to believe. Yeah, agreed. And by and large, we've been very fortunate and arguably successful. By any financial endeavor, my life works fine. I think the people that work for me have a good balance of work life and financial reward, and they get to express themselves at work, and so that piece works really well for us. And then, I don't know, by any measure, you sort of mentioned it, I think we've been in a bit of a vein of form, as they say, over the past few years, and being recognized by all kinds of media and sort of highfalutin food groups with JBF.
You're on the radar now.
Yeah, and then the top 50 stuff has been really nice.
Oh, that's right.
And,
you got mentioned there.
Yeah. So I hope we're on it this year. I don't know. I don't assume we are, but I hope we are.
Winston-Salem becoming more of a pizza destination city now, or are you still sort of the
That's a good question. I think even now, because we're so committed to doing it our way, and there's lots of reasons for that we could get into if you want. That we've developed our own brand and our own brand story, and certainly a clientele. But Winston as a whole, it's not the most adventurous place for diners.
Yeah, it's an old school city.
It is, and I think the default diner in Winston-Salem kind of wants things the way they want them, rather than, say, an experience, or rather a chef's point of view.
Well, did you get pushback coming into a city with a different style of pizza than what they were grown up
sure.
with?
I would say pushback. So Neapolitan pizza as a category, I don't think was populated until we populated it with one. Now in Charlotte, there's maybe one or two.
We have a few in Charlotte.
Yep. And then I don't even know if there's one in Raleigh right now.
Wood-fired pizzerias, but not
correct.
Neapolitan.
Yeah, correct.
What about, is Ben Barker, is he in your area too? Is he in
no, he's in, Gabe's in Carborough.
In Carborough?
Yeah, he's in Carborough.
So that's another, is he doing Neapolitan style there?
No, he's doing like, I would call his pizza like elevated, like just American style. So he cooks in a gas deck oven.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought he was trying to do Neapolitan.
No, I think that word has erroneously been attached to him. He certainly never said it. But he learned from the guys at Delfina.
Oh,
so he sort of took their sort of elevated American style, and went with that. He does a great job. I love his place.
When you're doing to try to stay as true to a true Naples style pizza. So how long do you bake your pizzas at? What temperature and things like that?
Yeah. So our fermentation system right now is a couple of days for us. Maybe a absolute strict Neapolitan pizzaiolo might scoff at refrigeration. We use refrigeration to good effect. Again, there's multiple reasons for that. Not only the desired result, but also just the vagaries of how and when people show up to a place like ours, like all kinds of reasons for that. Even the concept of refrigeration is not so taboo in Naples anymore, especially with some of the contemporanea pizzaioli, especially in pre-ferments and bigas. But 2 days really works for us.
Yeah.
We've sort of formulated a method and a procedure that works.
What kind of flour do you use?
I'm a Caputo loyalist. I use blue bag, so I use the original old school bag.
So and Caputo, of course, is the dominant brand in Italy, in Naples itself, for flour. And since they've come to America, a lot of pizzerias, not only Neapolitan pizza, many pizzerias are using their various types of flour. They've made a big inroad here.
Yeah, they've done a great job. They're always producing new product. They're always, in my mind, probably the miller that is the best at saying what's the goal of this final product and how do we get there. Antimo is at the very top, just with the science that they use and the testing and just their curiosity for what excites the pizza maker. So Nuvola is a perfect example of that, right?
That's a new one. There are other new brands.
Carlos San Marco, he's in our booth right now. Vincenzo Capuano, he's in the booth right now. Those two guys were among the very forefront, right, of like contemporary pizza makers, and you've seen and heard about Canotto pizza crust, big, blown up.
Oh yes.
Dinghy. Canotto is like a rubber dinghy.
And
it started as a pejorative, but it's been since really embraced by like this new wave of pizza makers. So Antimo embracing those guys and saying, what matters to you? What do you need to get your pizza to do what it needs to do, to look how it needs to look, to bake how it needs to bake, to ferment how it needs to ferment? All right, let's take your feedback and let's put it into a flour in the real world. It's kind of incredible. He did the same thing with Americana previous to that.
He's been very responsive to the requests of American bakers.
Yeah, he
to
is.
come up with products to meet their need.
Yeah, I think he firmly believes that really he's not much without the pizza maker.
Have you had a chance since coming into sort of the business and using his flour to get over there to the the mills and and everything?
I've been there pre-COVID. I was there basically every year.
Wow.
I'll be there this year for like 3 weeks, which will be great. But that'll be my first time back since COVID, so it's been a while for me. And then,
what's it like going back for you as somebody now has vested interest in all this?
Yeah.
What makes it meaningful to keep going back? Does it enrich you in a new way?
So there's a couple things. One is I'm always trying to gauge where we are by what, frankly, the best in the world are doing. And so traveling and eating pizza, whether it's South America, North America, including Canada, whether it's the UK, Italy, Japan, that's a big deal for me. I spend a lot of time and energy to do that.
Really?
So that's really exciting for me to understand sort of where, the beauty of understanding traditional pizza in Italy is once you understand it, you understand it. There's a tradition mob and things aren't going to change. But then there's always something around the bend, especially right now in pizza. It's a really ripe time for people doing just wild stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's very exciting. And then the other component of that for me, and this bleeds into all parts of my business, is I've developed so many relationships at this point by being embraced by the Orlando Foods crew, and just meeting people and revisiting with them over a period of years. That now I have these relationships that are really enriching to me. And so, you add the physical beauty of southern Italy, Naples, and you got a pretty good trio.
Well, a lot of what you're describing sounds similar to what Jonathan Goldsmith told us in another episode.
That sounds like Jonathan.
Sort of a feeling, how much he longs to go back every year,
Yeah.
number one.
Yeah.
You kind of tap into, in a sense, it's almost like, it's like plugging in.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The culture of pizza in Napoli, if you've not been there, is really impossible to describe. Just how much pizza is a part of their life, just how many pizzerias there are, how often people eat pizza. And so being a North Carolinian, the way I would describe it, obviously we have an incredible barbecue culture.
Yeah.
And I would kind of say, well, whatever you know about barbecue in North Carolina, put a 10x on that, and you'll start to understand what pizza culture is in Napoli. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. But it's a good analogy, and I think regionally around the United States, there's different regions that have their identifier.
Yep.
I'm from Philly, so of course cheesesteaks, hoagies, and roast pork sandwiches is our thing. And our frame of reference, I guess, is what I'm really trying to say. And pizza is the frame of reference.
Sure.
And certainly in Naples. And throughout Italy in a way, but Naples in particular.
Rightfully so. Yeah. I mean, there was some, there's always things, right? So the beauty of pizza now is I think there's people really interested in elevating pizza everywhere. And so, this based in Copenhagen develops a high profile. A lot of these Tokyo spots develop a really high profile. And it's interesting. I think people are, whether it's just we have to talk about things in the media or people just naturally get curious. I think there's this idea that this is up and coming and this is up and coming, but the truth is, as entrenched as Napoli is also the most interesting up and coming pizza city in the world.
Yeah. Because they have to kind of often reinvent themselves like anyone else. They have to stay relevant today.
Sure. And then I think there's also a major component, and I don't have any reason to believe that youngish Italian people are any different to the things that matter to youngish people around most of the world, but we certainly see just generational sort of priority shifts, and so I think this idea that the old guard is not being phased out in Napoli. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But begrudgingly at first, I think this new wave of pizza makers have really started to be embraced, especially by the public, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like Vincenzo and Carlos San Marco, those guys just jam it out every night. It's crazy.
Are you, at Mission Pizza, are you doing anything, quote, innovative, or is it all strictly traditional?
That's a good question. So generally our style of pizza is, I'm not hyper modern. I'm certainly not I love the tradition and I respect it and I understand it, but I'm not a traditionalist. I'm somewhere in between. So our pizza, for instance, has like a really tall, puffy cornicione. I want it to be super light and creamy, but maybe like the height of pizza contemporanea right now is maybe for me too soft. It has so much water in it that it's hard to create the contrast and texture that I prefer. I'm probably somewhere in the middle. What we put on pizza is all kinds of stuff. So whatever suits my fancy. I like homage to pizza makers I respect and admire. We do that quite a lot. So we're probably, I like to think of it as sort of being founded in the tradition, but just continuously moving in a way that is interesting to us. And right now it's somewhere between hyper contemporary Neapolitan, but not quite. And then I introduced something last year, basically a pizza tasting menu.
Pizza tasting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't know if anyone in the States was doing that at the time. I don't know if anyone's doing it now. I basically took a riff on, this Japanese omakase.
Yes.
And I call it pizza kase. And basically the idea is that for lots of reasons, for us to have just creative freedom, for us to basically let the diner know that this is a wholly different experience and tell that story. Also to actually attract a very different type of diner, right? Someone who's more of the mindset of let's just really experience what this place has to offer versus coming in here with maybe our preferences or our desires on the front end.
Kind of put himself into your hands.
Yeah.
So the omakase basically means whatever the chef wants to say.
Yeah, I'll leave it up to you. Yeah. It's great.
Joe Medea does that at his shop in Philadelphia with the
hoagies.
The hoagie tasting. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So
it's so cool to be able to kind of use that, extend that concept to other.
Yeah, it's been great. I think, like I said, it gives us a lot of freedom. The guests, by and large, are really happy. We sort of feel like we're sort of putting down our own gauntlet, so to speak, and we have an obligation to pick it up, right? Yeah. And so that's really good for us because it means we just have to bring it.
Yeah, and it keeps you kind of on your toes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Do you have any kind of a commitment to working with local, regional ingredients?
As best we can. We certainly have our rich moments in the Carolinas, but our seasons are also pretty wonky. I'm not an absolute locavore. That's not the case. But when we have access to good things that we like that are local, and we can partner with growers that we have a good relationship with, absolutely. I don't think. I think it's a balance. The balance is arguably necessary.
Yeah.
And so we balance that like everyone else.
Yeah.
But we can get a lot of great stuff in the Carolinas, especially in the Piedmont.
Yeah, there's one of the few places in the country where throughout the entire 365 days of the year, there's something being harvested.
Something, for sure. Yeah,
for sure. What else do you have on the menu besides pizza?
So we're really like a little osteria. So we're not a pizzeria by any respect. We have maybe a half a dozen or 8 pizza on the menu, a couple of, like I said, this pizza kase service. And then it's a standard kind of osteria menu. We have a few pasta. We have a lot of veg and salad, and we utilize our oven to roast any number of things. Right now we've been finishing lobsters in the wood-fired oven, and it's awesome. So And then we also do like a pre-fee tasting menu in addition to our pizza casse menu. So it's the same thing. It's like a 5-course tasting menu, chef's choice, family style, and that's a lot of fun for us.
Are you essentially the chef there, or is there somebody else that?
Yeah, no, I'm there. I have sort of 2 primary guys that cook with me, and they're both excellent. A guy named Evan Kaiser and a guy named Matt Mabe. And they help me knock it out. But yeah, I mean, the menu is sort of what I'm feeling or thinking at the time, and they help me execute, and we can bounce things off each other and dial in the execution.
Yeah.
And periodically those guys will have a point of view and we'll incorporate what they want. But both of them are more in the vein of, what are we doing? Let's do it. We've had people with a little more personal expression, and we let them express themselves when they're in our space. But those guys are great. And between the 3 of us, we basically, bang it out.
Do you have any plans to expand to other locations, or is this one?
Always, right? I mean, the answer is the likelihood that it's the version of the restaurant I have right now is very slim. I don't believe it's really scalable. There's not, in my estimation, there's not an excellent wood-fired and or Neapolitan pizzeria maybe in America, unless there's a singular person that's basically there and touches everything all the time.
Yeah.
They don't have to make the pizzas per se anymore, but it's such a, frankly, an arduous way to make pizza. And the margins for error are way too slim. I don't think it's really scalable for me and what I want. But my brother and I, he moved to the Carolinas a couple years ago, and we've been kind of daydreaming about something for a long time. And so I built a restaurant model that's based in what we do, basically modernize it, right? Which means the way we produce, the methods to produce the dough, the way we bake the dough.
Yeah.
We need to modernize that a little bit in order to make it scalable. But I think we're pretty close to something. We've had a couple near misses lately.
Any chance that coming full circle, getting barbecue into the mix somehow?
I think if I could find a good operating partner, I would love that. Honestly, I think even in the Carolinas at this point, arguably I have a personal brand that could be a segue into, like, this guy just kind of does his thing.
Yeah.
And can we make barbecue happen? Me personally, I don't know if I want to get up at 3 a.m.
Well, it's a whole other game.
So
it's a lifestyle.
It's a different animal.
Yeah.
So I would need an operating partner that would want to do that. But I would honestly love to do that. I have a whole concept
I guess
for
what
that.
I'm getting at is, now that you've established your brand, and you have experience under your belt now as a restaurateur.
Right.
Is Neapolitan pizza the only kind of restaurant you ever want to do?
I think that's very unlikely. I mean, I don't have an endless. I don't have the will of an endless, back pocket, right?
Like a restaurant.
Yeah. So, whatever I do needs to be smart and calculated, and so what that means is there's lots of variables that rely on things that are external to me to make anything happen. But I'm always poking around. Like I said, my brother and I just had like 2 near misses in the last year on a retail space, commercial space. I would be surprised. I mean, I wouldn't be displeased. So the beauty of what I do is I love making pizza. Until I get tired of making pizza, I can show up on Trade Street and have fun with my crew, and we can continue to kind of push ourselves forward. But I'm also just happy stand there and make pizza, stand there and make pizza, stand there and make pizza. And my life works good. I anticipate that, in a very slow upward curve, arguably my life would keep working good, right? Have good momentum. So
no burning desire to build an empire.
No, I don't think I'm built like that right now.
Yeah.
I want to go in the direction of things that speak to me and excite me and energize me, and I think that's the best part of me and the best version of me. But minus like finding a different kind of institutional partner, like a restaurant group or something like that. It can be so difficult to ramp up that you just have to be smart. But like, I have to do this, or I have to do this, or I have to necessarily move on to the next thing. That's not for me.
For some people, it's always burning in them, and
sure,
for others, not.
Sure, yeah.
Why did you call it Mission Pizza? Where did that name come?
That's a good question. So, there's a couple layers to that. So there's half of that duality is just purely personal to me. So it started as this idea of like, I really have to move in the direction of at least being engaged and hopefully falling in love with this procedure of a career, right? The other part of that I expressed just a second ago, which is like I had a lot of reasons to have an idea. I wasn't certain, but have an idea that this kind of work and this kind of procedural work and mixed in with the camaraderie of a team, that would sort of bring out the best version of me. And so that's a piece of it. A piece of that piece is just the goal of like always trying to get better, self-improvement, and doing these things in a way that hopefully just make my life better.
So that's really your mission.
Okay, that's a piece of it.
That's
a personal piece.
The mission, yeah.
And then the sort of broader piece would be, it's hard to believe this, but I still think that like the real culture of Neapolitan pizza is largely misunderstood. It's incredibly underrepresented, even though we feel like it's everywhere now. And I think it's one of the great food cultures, food products, singular food products in the world. And just the culture of Naples and the pizza and the food culture there is another piece of that, which is was never represented in our area. And so the personal piece, the broader piece of our mission to just produce this thing with a love and respect and an admiration for the way it's been done forever, to introduce people to what we believe is a pretty special product, but previously unbeknownst to the Carolinas. So that's the other piece of that for me.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, that's that in and of itself can be a very fulfilling path.
Sure.
Because it's pretty fathomless. I mean, that mission never ends.
Yeah.
And it'll certainly keep you engaged. Personally, and hopefully also extend to the people whose lives you touch.
I hope so.
Through Mission Pizza.
I hope so.
Well, Peyton, thanks so much for spending this time with us.
My pleasure.
We've been talking to Peyton Smith, the founder, owner, operator, pizzaiolo of Mission Pizza Napolitana in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So if your travels bring you to that area, nice wine region in the near Winston. There's it's a pretty cool place, and not far from Charlotte, North Carolina. So you can combine those. Is best airport to fly into Charlotte, or does Winston have a good airport?
Greensboro can be a little cheap, but Greensboro is so easy.
It's easy.
Charlotte's a cluster right now, as you know.
Charlotte right now is one of the busiest airports in the country.
It's crazy.
But anyway, find an excuse to get there.
Thanks.
Look for Peyton, look for Mission Pizza, and hopefully look for me, because I'm going to try to get up there as soon as I can.
Yeah, if you come to us,
my wife and I have
hi.
plans to come up to Winston soon. So
that'd be great.
I'll give you a call, and I look forward very much to tasting your.
That'd be great.
That's
a great time. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Peyton. And thank all of you for tuning in to Pizza Quest and for being with us. And we'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Pizza Quest. A number of the conversations you will hear this season were recorded over a 2-day period during the 2023 International Pizza Expo held in Las Vegas, Nevada. These recordings would not have been possible without the help of many people and our generous underwriters, but I'd like to take a moment now to especially thank some of the unsung heroes. My Pizza Quest partners, Jeff Michael and Brad English, our HRN recording producer, Liam Werner, as well as HRN's Matt Patterson and Joanna Garnett-Reipold, and also Alexander Mortati of Orlando Foods, who organized and coordinated the schedules of many of our guests to get them to our recording table throughout the expo. Thank you to all of you. Pizza Quest is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.